Okay, so here's the last video for today, which I'm sure people are like, thank goodness, you need to be quiet. I agree. All right, so we're going to talk about barriers to entry and going into regulation, things like that. I'm not going to go into the market structure part. I left that mainly to, what's written on the notes and stuff, and then those two videos by one by the Crash Course people and other by oh my gosh, Mr. Clifford there, who is way better at these things than I am, of course. Anyway, he's, by the way, you can always check his stuff out for explanation on a lot of stuff. He does a really good job, even though, that's why I don't like him. Joking. Anyway, yeah, so check his stuff out if mine doesn't explain it well or whatever. He's got a whole bunch of stuff, especially on the microeconomic stuff. He's got like a 30-minute video on all the stuff micro that you need to know, whether you want to do that or not. Anyway, going on from there, we will talk about privatization and government delivery of services more, but for now, I'm just going to leave it at what's in that note. So now I'm just going to go through this part, and I will say right off the top that there is no change to the wording of the assignment, right? So if you're going through this to get, hey, what are the changes in instructions? There are no changes in the instructions. They're the exact same, regardless of whether you listen to this or not. Which, like, maybe I'm just now hearing people click the X and get rid of this video. But anyway, here we go. So here's some variety of what it means to have a barrier to entry to a market. All right, so looking at the example here is Coke. So brand loyalty, it is hard to fight Coke in the soft drinking market. They're not the biggest company. Coca-Cola is not bigger than PepsiCo, but in terms of beverages, like drinks, Coke is way beyond anybody else. And so it's hard for them, another cola or something like that, to break in. And of course, they've expanded their market to all sorts of other drinks as well. So it's increasingly hard, especially for a new company, to get in there. If you think of the companies that started to do like cane sugar cola, well, they quickly were matched by Coke putting out their own cane sugar version. So it's a very tough one in terms of loyalty. Economies of scale, if you are a small company, it is hard to produce at the same level and for the same cost as a bigger company. They're established, they may have production and delivery methods and all that stuff are firmly entrenched, and they may be able to beat you on the price per item. So you have to go another way to get into and meet that price point. The one exception to that I can think of is when Harry's and Harry, and what's the other one? Bucket Shave. What is it? Bucket Day Shave Club. Oh, it's something like that. Anyway, those challenging the razor market, they've actually been pretty successful at doing that because of the high costs of razors. So that's a little different one, that economies of scale thing. But of course, Harry's say they have a factory in Germany they own, so I don't know if that's true or not. I've never looked it up. Okay, geographical barriers. All right, that's just, you're not able to supplant in terms of physical locations, not able to get in there. Well, there's a bunch of stuff that go along with that. If there's a patent that's protecting the product, then of course you have to make a knockoff. You have to make something differently. It's never going to be quite the same. So vertical integration means that you have no in all the stores. So Coke makes deals with all sorts of restaurants and stuff to sell Coke products. Pepsi has other ones. So it would be very difficult for you to get in and actually access the market outside of, to get onto like a store shelves like Walmart can be difficult for certain companies, right? You have to get in the door. And that's, if you think about that, you think about Dragon's Den and Shark Tank and stuff, and part of that is that's why they go to those people, because they have access to those doors to get them in there. And then the first mover, right? If you're the first one to do something, so Google wasn't the first search engine though. right? There was a bunch of ones that you have never heard of, but now that they're entrenched, they're the king. But other companies being the first of something, it's difficult then to then get into that market if everybody knows you as the king of that market, that kind of thing. So anyway, there's a bunch of other things, but there you go. All right, privatization. So privatization. Oh, what did I just? No, never mind. Okay. So privatization is basically when a public good becomes a private good. The example there is Ontario Hydro was sold to private organizations, the majority, I should say. Same thing. I learned that when you have a house or something and you have your property lines, and the company that comes to that carries the deeds to your property, so that says your property goes from this point to this point, and now it's all computerized and it's all the markers on your land, which would be like metal bars, they're all numbered, and a surveying company just searches for the bar with the number, and then they plot your land, like they can stake out your land. So that used to be a public register office that you used to go and access for free because your taxes paid for it. It wasn't free, your taxes paid for it. Nowadays, so in the 80s, the Ontario government sold half of that business when they were trying to digitize land records. And they sold it to a company called Terranet. And so Terranet had half and the Ontario government had half. And then in the 90s, I think it was 2003. I think it was 2003. The Ontario government then sold the rest of it to the private company Terranet. So now Terranet has the entire ownership over public land, like deeds and all those records. So now every time when you look at something, you have to pay per page to look at your own deed and stuff like that. So anyway, that's an example of privatization. Okay. Oh, the reason why, there's varied reasons. This is what I don't really want to get into, but most of the time people are sold on the fact that a private company can do it better than the government, and that it'll end up being cheaper. I would have to argue that's almost never true, but I'm sure there are examples where it is. Anyway, moving on. Regulations. Okay, so regulations can make it very difficult to get in on a market. You have to meet all sorts of rules. That's what a regulation is. Could be safety regulations, could be all sorts of things. It could be even, in the States they have the Buy American clause. Well, you have to meet the construction clauses that go along with Buy American. So there's all sorts of regulations that come with being in different types of markets. When you're a builder, there's tons of building codes. It can take a lot you might have to hire somebody specifically to do all the applications for building codes. Right? So there's just a whole lot of stuff that goes in towards certain industries versus other ones. And I'm not arguing for or against that. There are reasons why there are all these regulations. Some of them become outdated. Some of them need updating. Some of them are there for a very good reason. Environmental protections, for instance, versus safety things versus who knows. Okay? All right, moving on. Labor protection. Okay. So what do I want to say about this one? Well, it's interesting. I won't say too much about this, coming from, I guess, where I would come from on this one. Just that labor relations can be tricky, and if you have unionized workforce for the company, it can be more difficult because then they have to negotiate with the union. They can't set things on their own. They do have to meet certain not demands, but they have to negotiate deals, and so that can be costly. It can be time consuming. At the same time, right, if you don't have that protection in place, you're just basing your protection is now case law in labor law. And so all the company has to do is meet the bare minimum. So they have to, they only have to pay you minimum wage. They only have to give you the minimum amount of benefits, all that kind of stuff. So in terms of a company going into a market, they may have to deal with more regulations and more labor unions and stuff. From a labor point of view, pretty hard to. The only real knock against labor unions, at least the way kind of I see it, is that your individuality is gone. So for teachers, for instance, it doesn't matter how good I do and how poorly I do compared to other teachers. I get paid the same amount. And and funny, because some people would say, well, you get paid too much regardless. Fine, that's your take on it. That's great. And some people would say that, I don't do a very good job, or I don't think many people are in that boat. Hopefully not. But it is frustrating for someone who puts a lot of effort into their job, and they see people that don't. That can be very frustrating, because I cannot, there's no way for me to show that I'm worth more than someone else, right? That my work, my labor is worth more in a union environment. So that is a negative, that individuality and stuff. So, but you are protected, of course, with all the different right things. So, all right, marketing boards, which you're going to be looking at. There's articles to look at. So marketing boards have kind of grown out of favor a little bit, but they do provide, so Canada has marketing boards for different things. We do have a strong dairy quota, and that protects the dairy industry from encroachment by foreign companies. So if you think about, the last NAFTA deal, the renegotiated NAFTA deal, CUSMA, Canada, U.S., Mexico, CUSMA, whatever. You get what I'm saying. It is CUSMA. C-U. Anyway. No, C-A. Sorry, getting off track. You know what I'm talking about. The renegotiated NAFTA deal gave the United States and Mexico some access to the dairy quota system. So it cut down on the limitations of the amount of non-Canadian dairy. So that's a threat to Canadian farms. People then, again, so now you're arguing over efficiency, so the more companies are able to easier get into the market, the more efficient it's going to be. But maybe the standards, because the standards for milk in Canada versus the United States are very different. So how do you regulate that? All sorts of things like that. Do you want to support local farmers? Becomes increasingly difficult the more you have foreign companies in the market. So that's just one example. There's lots of other ones as well. Okay, health and safety and environmental regulations. There are lots of things to try and protect our environment. There's all sorts of things, and there's all sorts of reasons for that. Sometimes it comes under criticism because people say it's too stringent and therefore inhibits development. At the same time, other people say that it is too open and encourages development on what should be protected land. So the current Ontario government has done some things to undermine some of those environmental protections. So they've prevented local conservation boards from being any kind of authority on certain development projects. So that's, for environmentalists, that's a little alarming. For developers, that's good news, because you might be able to develop in a place you couldn't before. So, I'm not going to put my own bias on that. I'm just saying that there are reasons for those things to be in place, and there are reasons that people want them taken down. Even health inspectors and stuff. Some people think the rules and the way it works doesn't work well, and they want things changed, and other people see that as you're just making things less safe for everybody. Again, arguments can be made on both sides. Okay, technology. I don't know a whole lot. Somebody just said, actually, Ethereum. I think that might be the way you say it. Mentioned that. I had to look that up. I'm like, what is... And then I forgot it's in that picture. I had to look that up, though. I'm like, what the heck is that? What's he talking about? Oh, okay. Cryptocurrency. Got it. Right? So technology changes constantly, as we know. And cryptocurrency is one of those things that's come up in the last 5 years in more and more importance. And so rules have to be established to avoid people being taken advantage of people being able to steal or cheat people out of things. So technology is always a challenge to the way things were. In some ways, like old rules don't apply, and so they need to be dropped or changed. And other times, new rules have to be thrown in place because there are none for that particular thing. So all of those things are all barriers to a company, right? To enter an industry. All right, so they're all barriers and they're all regulations that industry faces in terms of development. Hopefully that was of some value to you. But as I said, none of the actual instructions are different. So you take one of those particular. So you could use tech, you could use health and safety, you could use marketing board, so on and so forth. You just focus on the one to do the assignment. You're not doing them all. All right. And any questions, then what's that word? Send me an email. Wow, I couldn't think of the word send. All right, that is it for today. I believe. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Or you know what I mean.